All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is my persuasive speech. But before I go into that, I first like to go into some introductions here. First, my name is Nicholas McDermott with the United States Air Force. I am in the Honor Guard as well, and this is
My name is Ellington Anderson. I'm also in the United States Air Force Honor Guard.
My name is Keenan Larry. I am a United States Air Force Honor Guard.
yes, and I'm talking about today is why the Vietnam War should be taught in schools as a curriculum or continue to be taught in schools. Now, I would like to give a little bit of backstory on what would be happening in the Vietnam War. Now, this would be known as the Second Indochina War, but for there to be a second of something, there has to be a first of something. And the first Indochina War would actually be led by a man by the name of Ho Chi Minh, who would actually fight for Vietnam's independence against that French colonial rule. And then the Second Indochina War would actually start the day that World War II would end on September 2nd of 1945. Now, with all of this happening, there would actually be said that there was a domino theory that if one country was to fall to communism, then all other neighboring countries would fall to communism as well. Hence why the North and South Vietnam had this disagreement, and they would essentially start to clash. Now, when America would get involved into this war, at first they wouldn't be involved when the war would first start, but then North Vietnam would actually strike one of our naval ships, which would be the Tonkin Gulf incident, and that would ultimately lead to us joining into the Vietnam War. We'll start to send Green Berets first into this war, and these Green Berets would train up and help show these South Vietnamese troops how to fight and how to be advanced in psychological warfare as well against North Vietnam. Now, a question that is asked a lot is how many people did pass away in the Vietnam War. There was up to 58,000 people that would pass away during the Vietnam War, whether that be from South Vietnam or American troops as well. Now, the reason that we do have and know this is because of the DPAA.
What is the DPAA?
So, the DPAA is the accounting for agency. So, it's the Department of Defense's POW MIA accounting for agency, and even till today, they are still even finding members that were missing in action or prisoners of war as well. Now, you'll see these members being honored in the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington National Cemetery, because that tomb is to represent every member that has not been found as well. Now, to continue talking about people that haven't been found and paying that respects, that's exactly why I think the war should be taught in schools as well, because we don't want these members to essentially be lost in history forever, just like any other history event that would go on in the United States or even around the world. We don't want these to be things that are lost and forgotten as well. Now, moving on, I'd like to talk about televisions in the Vietnam War. Now, to go on talking about televisions, these TVs would play a big role in the Vietnam War, because at the beginning of the war there was about 9% of families that had televisions in their living rooms, but as war progressed, about 90% of families would have televisions in their living rooms. Now, a question that is asked a lot as well is how many or how did people get information about the Vietnam War before TVs? So there was messenger pigeon, there was radios, there was other kinds of broadcasts like newspapers. People would go to the movie theaters and they'll see before the movie would even start, before they played credits and anything like that, they played who would be getting drafted into the military and who would actually be passing away. And many different kinds of things would be being pushed out before these televisions. Now, the televisions would actually shift the views once these televisions would enter these homes here. They'll shift the views of Americans through a holiday called Tet. Now, this will lead to the Tet Offensive, and the Tet Offensive Tet itself was a holiday much similar to American New Year's. Now, South Vietnam thought they had a truce with North Vietnam, essentially saying that they were going to cease fire on that day, but that isn't what would happen, and many Americans would see mass bloodshed and what it was like to see war for the very first time, and this would ultimately lead to Americans shifting their views on what war was like in Vietnam. Now, this would lead to them treating many different troops very poorly. They would be spat upon. Some would even burn their own uniforms in the airports to show that they weren't affiliated with this war. They would get names called. I mean, their names would be called out of place, and many different things would happen due to that Tet offensive there. Now, that is also why I do want to shed a little bit of light on these troops as well, because even now to this day, we still have troops that are suffering from PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, that they've actually never heard the words welcome home and or thank you for your service, and they don't even talk about the events that transpired in the Vietnam War. That is why I want this to be taught in schools and also to remain a part of the curriculum, so these kids do know once they see a Vietnam veteran with that hat on, they could shake their hand, look them in the eye, thank them for their service, welcome them home, because like I said before, those are still words that they haven't heard today as well.
How did the war end up ending? Like, what was the say on?
How did it conclude?
So the war would actually end in 1975. First, there would be something called Vietnamization, which would actually be led by Richard Nixon in 1968, actually. So that would actually be the whole reason he would be elected as president, because Vietnamization would be the removal of troops outside of Vietnam. And because we essentially didn't want to keep fighting in a war that wasn't meant for us. So that would be the removal of troops out of Vietnam. And then the Paris Peace Accords will be signed later down the line, saying that North Vietnam cannot fire upon Americans and Americans cannot fire upon North Vietnam. But we were still able to help aid South Vietnam, but we just weren't able to engage in any conflict. But the war would end in the year of 1975 with the fall of Saigon, which is the capital of Vietnam, North Vietnam there as well. So yes, that is how the war would end. But this does conclude my persuasive speech. Again, my name is Nicholas McDermott with the United States Air Force. Thank you all for listening in on my speech here.